Okay, this is the oil change on a 2005 Kawasaki ZZR 250, and the same process applies to almost any vehicle on the road, so it's a pretty applicable skill. And the first step is kind of dangerous, so it's a teacher only task. You've got to get the bike onto the center stand. Then second step is putting an oil drip pan underneath the bike, catch all the oil. And I'm using a 17mm spanner to open the oil filter housing, and it's the same size for the sump plug as well. So as soon as you open this, oil is going to come spilling out, so make sure your drip pan's right underneath, like that. And then this is probably about a quarter of the oil in the whole bike. It comes out as a whole housing assembly, like this. And let the oil drain out of it first, because it holds a fair bit of oil. And if you take it apart very carefully, because there's heaps of little parts inside it, and just lay it out to drip. The next part is the sump plug itself, which holds the rest of the oil. And then a lot of oil is going to come out as soon as this comes out, so be careful. During this whole process you need to be wearing gloves, because especially old oil is very carcinogenic on your skin. That's the sump plug there. Very important, it needs to be really clean so don't drop it in the ground. So wait until your oil ends up being dripping out like this. So most of it's out. And then we'll just take apart the whole oil filter assembly here. So we've got the oil filter itself, filters the oil for any contaminants. Then the stalk it sits on. Now it fits together like this with the spring there to stop the oil filter moving about while the bike's running. It sits on like that. And the cap sits on top to keep everything together, and a washer so it seals. And one of the most important pieces is the gasket, and it fits into a groove, and this stops any oil leaking out onto the ground. Very important to be kept clean. And that's the whole complete assembly ready to be put back on. Now you want to be careful not to cross thread it, because then you can destroy the thread of the bike, and that's very expensive to repair. It'll take about 10 turns to be about hand tight. And you just want to do it up to hand tight at the moment, don't do it any tighter. Now one of the most important pieces is this flat section here, and the thread itself needs to be as clean as possible. And then again you want to make sure you don't cross thread this, and then bolt it up to the top of the engine. So now when you're done with that, we want to have a look at the quality of the oil that's come out. Now it's completely normal for the oil to be black, but as you can see this oil is kind of gold brown, which is a good sign. And we just want to tighten up the oil filter housing. Don't over tighten it, just until it won't realistically go any further. And then you want to do for the same with the sump plug. Again, that's important. And now you can see the bike here takes 1.9 litres of oil. Now these little filler caps can be very hard to take off sometimes, so you might need some pliers. And careful not to drop this as well, because it shouldn't get sandy. It's important to not see any frothy sort of white material on top of this oil filler cap. That means further problems. And now we just want to fill the bike up. There's oil gradient marks on the side of the canister, so you can see how much oil we've poured so far. And then you want to fill the oil up until it's on the halfway mark in this window here. No more than that. Any more than that and you'll have more problems. You want to clean this surface here so it seals. And then put the cap back on. Just do it finger tight. Now the next step is starting the bike up, and you want to wait for this light to go off. And if it stays on more than 10 seconds, turn the bike off immediately. Then you want to check there's no leaks under the bike, and then you're done.